I'm a lucky girl. I have shops that call me every single day looking for marketing, trying to grow their shops. And in doing so, we talk about a lot of the pain points that are happening in shops. And what's interesting is most of you guys are experiencing the same things, the same frustrations. So I had my guest come on today, Kyle Motzkus, and we are talking about a lot of the main pain points that you in the shop are dealing with. He's a general manager of a shop out in St. Louis, Missouri. We talk about how he is talking with the guests when they come, explaining the repair process, also how he writes up the repair procedures. And one thing that he's doing, or a few things that he's doing actually, that are assisting and getting compensated for all the work that's being done, which I know is a big frustration with everybody I talk to on a daily basis. So we're hitting them all today. Kyle's awesome, super funny dude, very intelligent, going to share with us what he's doing at his shop. Hopefully it can help you at yours. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Body Bangin' Podcast. Welcome back. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and make sure that you hit the notifications bell so you get notified every time a new episode drops. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those fun audio platforms, make sure to follow us. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can actually scroll all the way down and leave us a review. And if you like it, we get to share with more people. The more reviews, more people get to see and watch this. So that's my spiel. Let's get into it. Today, we have my buddy on, finally. He's like, oh no, who's she talking about? It's Kyle Motzkus. Da, 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 da. He's doing a dance if you can't see him.
Hey-o.
Hey-o. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. It's about time. I've been only clamoring at you forever to get on here, but I can wait in the wings.
Patience, my friend, patience. So Kyle is the general manager of Hunter Auto Body in St. Louis, Missouri. He's been there for a while and actually been in the industry for a bazillion years. Okay, maybe not, but a long time, 13 years. And he's learned a lot. And what I love about Kyle is we're buddies on Facebook. We're buddies in person. Such an awesome guy. And what I love about Kyle is he really shoots you straight. You never got to guess what Kyle's thinking. Am I right or wrong,
Nope.
Kyle?
No, you're 100% right. I don't want people to guess what I'm thinking because then I'm not conveying my message correctly.
Right, exactly. And I love it. There's no beating around the bush. So Kyle's doing a lot of different things in the industry, and we were toying around with a few different topics to talk about because there's a couple of things that he talks about that I really want to get out there and talk about more. But today we've decided to talk about repair planning. This is something that I talk to shops with literally on a daily basis. And Kyle's been talking a lot at the local trade show organizations and that kind of fun stuff. And his way of doing repair planning is different than what a lot of shops are doing. And as you guys know, I want to bring information to you so you can decide what fits best for your shop. And it's great to hear different perspectives. And Kyle, like everybody, is focused on getting paid, getting compensated for the work that he does. At the same time, he has a different strategy with all of it. So we're going to chat about that today. Get your notepad, get your pen. I think you're going to have some awesome takeaways. So, Kyle, let's jump in. You ready to go?
I got my swimsuit on. I'm ready to dive right in. Let's do it.
Let's go. So, Kyle, you've been talking at these association meetings about repair planning. I know there's probably a lot of things that make your repair planning different than what a lot of people are doing. What do you feel like is the biggest differentiator with what most shops are doing?
Well, yeah, it has taken some swooning to the owner of the shop that I work for, because the owner of the shop that I work for has been the pretense for quite some time that you don't want to let any customer get away. And we still try to teach things or try to treat that, not teach, excuse me, treat things like that, that I don't want a single customer to get away. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that not every customer is going to be your customer, and not every customer is going to be that person you want there. You have to make sure that not only are you a good fit for them as a shop, whether you like it or not. There's an ass that fits every seat, but you also have to make sure that they're a good fit for your shop ultimately, because you don't want to have to continually go back and forth and be reactive versus being proactive. The customer that you can be proactive with is the customer you want at your shop, not a customer you want to be reactive with. What I like to build my strategy on is the same way. If you know me in the Facebook world, you also know that I compete fairly often with competitive jiu-jitsu, and that I'm in the fighting world. One of the huge things in our world is if you're reactive, you're losing. If you're proactive, you're winning, period.
Love that. Yeah. How accurate is that in life, right? In success in general. Yeah. Okay. So when you've got customers, guests, whatever you want to call them, coming into your shop, how are you assessing that? Is it behavior based? Is it by the type of job? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at I'm looking at body language, and I kind of have to name drop Collision Hub on that. They kind of set me down the path of focusing on customers and how their interaction is with me versus my interaction with them, and how that's a little more important.
Yeah, true.
But I digress. Back to what I'm saying. I focus entirely on their interaction with what I'm saying, how they're receiving information, what they're doing with their eyes, their arms, their head. Are they looking down? Are they looking at me? Are they looking up? Are they wandering around? What's going on? Are they sitting? Are they attentive? If they are, then that means they're receptive to the things I'm saying and that they're going to capture the keys. If they're not necessarily attentive, then they're possibly apprehensive, and basically finding out what they're apprehensive about.
Yeah.
Is it possibly because they want to pay out of pocket? Are they filing a claim? What are they scared of?
Right. Right.
Because it's a generally nervous thing when you get into an accident. You don't know this situation. Everything is scary. Your car's wrecked. It's your second biggest investment. Everything's going downhill. And the only person you're talking to seems like they just want to make money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've actually talked with Kristen about reading people, and she is awesome when it comes to that. I think she must have taught a class, because if you're referencing it, you probably learned that from her. And I completely agree. And I think a lot of us do get, and I say us as a former shop owner, we get to the point, and it's like this place of fear of, I got to get it all. I got to get it all. And it's like, to what benefit, really? So I appreciate you saying that. And I've not had anybody come on yet and say those exact words. So I appreciate you talking about that. So secondarily, when we're getting into the repair planning part of it, and actually, they drop the keys. Now you go into the repair planning portion of it. I know that the way that you're riding the vehicle is different potentially than others. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I try not to get, and if I'm understanding your question correctly, I try not to get into any technical weeds with the customer. So I'm very honest with my client, but I'm very much under the premise that the less they know, the better. And the more they know, the better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're getting into technical weeds with clients, I kind of view it kind of like how I would be talking to my girlfriend, Lauren. She has this thing that they call it mansplaining, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you dive into these subjects and you want to just yell everything at them. You want to tell them all this great technical stuff. And the customer really only cares is their car safe, shiny, and drivable. That's really all they care about.
Right.
So
right.
when it comes to the repair planning aspect and going over that with my client, I just tell them my process. I have a very cut and dry, it's non-scripted. Each person is very different in how I approach it. I'm very animated when I do it. And I spend between I spend between 20 minutes and an hour with the client, just depending on how receptive they are or how many questions they have. And that's my consultation. And 9.8 out of 10 times, I don't have to write the estimate up front. They end up understanding why I don't do it, and they usually end up dropping the keys. Unfortunately, depending on the carrier, I would say we have between an 80 and 90% capture rate. Certain carriers,
Awesome.
I'm not going to name any names, they're at about, unfortunately, a 50 to 60%. So
Right. So typically for the clients that are coming in, you're not typically writing, hey, come on in, let me give you your free estimate. You're explaining the process of why you do what you do, which I'm assuming, you haven't told me, but I'm assuming that you're not doing an estimate. You're probably doing like a full tear down to do a repair plan. Am I right or wrong?
absolutely 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, is we're communicating with the guest. We're letting them know the process at a high level so they feel trusted. They feel like you're the expert without getting into the weeds where their eyes glaze over and they're like, what?
100%. One of the things that's really stuck with me over my own research, because I did dive really deep, going back into the psychology of things. I dove really deep into AIC 30, studied the entire booklet from front to back, spent a lot of time with a lot of different people. And one of the biggest things that stuck with me is listening to a Mickey Woods marketing seminar talking about pain points, which is actually ironically how we met, because I made a joke about pain points, and I was talking about poking customers, and you're like, what? You shouldn't do that. But that's exactly it right there, is understanding their pain points and knowing when and where to use it.
Yeah. Well, and I see you have a lot of certifications on the wall behind you. If you guys are listening, you can't see Kyle. He's got a little wall of certifications behind him. Ta-da! So it looks like those are the assured performance certs you got going on there. Now, how are you, this is a little off topic, but how are you talking to the client about the certification piece of all of this? Because I feel like that we as shops are really missing that educational piece. Are you guys touching on that?
It's a good question, Mickey. And I think for the most part, I am. Again, I listen to the customer and I kind of feel them out. Some don't necessarily care, but some do, especially ones that we get from the apps from the respective manufacturers.
Right.
They'll call, and one of the first questions, they're like, yeah, I was on my Kia app, and it said that you're, the number one, shop for the area, and blah, blah, blah. And I just agree with them. Yes, yes, we are listed as the number one shop in the St. Louis area for Kia collision centers. And, so yes, I do mention our certification process and the required equipment and a few other things, but I don't really like dive into it.
Yeah. Okay.
I just like to mention, because it is kind of it's a feel good thing,
It is a feel-good thing. And I think it's a feel-good thing personally, because my job as a marketer is to look at things through the consumer's eyes. And I think as a consumer, to know that a shop has gone through specialized training, they have specialized tooling and technicians for my specific vehicle, it's like, oh, okay. That took all of 10 seconds to say. And it's another feel-good thing. Like you're talking about psychology, that's an emotional connection. While giving facts, it does connect emotionally, like, oh, wow, this place is legit. Like you're saying, if they're finding you on the app, they already know. So kind of a lot of times they find you on the app, but they don't really know what a certified shop is. I mean, if you think about it, even the dealerships don't even understand what a certified shop is half the time, 90% of the time, really. How's the customer,
You're telling me, absolutely. I've came to the conclusion. I've come to the conclusion that there's some dealerships out there for their respective manufacturers that are not certified in the manufacturer they even sell.
Right. I know. Crazy, right? How is that happening? Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Okay. So we've got the car, we got the keys, client leaves, customer leaves. Now you're writing up. Now you're tearing the whole vehicle down. And you had talked with me a little bit about your repair order looks different and has quite a few less lines than potentially somebody else's. Yet you do feel like you're writing a complete repair order for what you're doing. So explain that to me.
It's not necessarily that it's quite a few lines that other shops are. It's just that we're deciding not to charge for certain things that other shops are.
Okay.
It's hard. As I mull through my brain, it's kind of hard to explain how you can verifiably call something complete or not. I guess to answer that question, we'd have to agree on what a complete repair plan is.
True.
And
True.
I would think that that's a very subjective way to look at something.
Yes, yeah, that is true.
To me, a complete repair plan would be what's complete for any shop. Is the vehicle repaired to its fullest extent that you as a repairer are going to do, that you decided in an agreement with the consumer? That to me would be a complete repair plan. So however that looks for your shop. I'm not one to tell a shop what's complete and what isn't. The only thing I, as an educator, would care about is if things are being done in accordance with what the repair procedures say to do. So if GM requires that you stand on your head next to the front left door before you measure a steering column, then by God, you better be standing on your head before you measure that steering column,
right.
In my opinion, at least.
Right. Yeah. I'm in agreement with you. So what are some of these things that you're potentially not charging for? We're not writing, or are you not even writing it on the repair order? You're not charging for it? Go into that a little bit.
That's a double-edged sword. That's a good question. I feel like it's a double-edged sword right there, because I have kind of like the old adage, the angel and the devil.
Yes, yes.
I have two schools of thought with that. One school of thought is, for an example, things you can charge for, or things that are not included in any refinish process, would be like cure time, or cycles, gas for the furnace and the booth, for the bake cycles, flash times, things of that nature. That is not included in the 2-stage refinish process, or 3-stage for that matter. However, for me, those aren't things, even though they're actively obviously being done in our repair process, those aren't things that I would necessarily put on the repair plan.
Gotcha.
And I'm not saying it's wrong for any other shops to do it. I've put them on repair plans when doing any reviews or anything of that sort. But for me, at our shop, the way we're approaching everything, moving in a tiered process, kind of stepping up as we go, we're not putting stuff like that on a repair plan. But I do actively talk about it when I'm negotiating with a carrier. If we have X, Y, and Z on this repair plan, I mentioned, hey, these are things that are not included, that we're not charging for, that they're actively being gone through. But then the other school of thought is that it should still be on the repair plan, but at no charge.
Right, right.
So that's
showing that it's been done, but it's like the discount has been given, and a good faith discount type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the two schools of thought that I have.
Yeah.
So it's even for someone with the knowledge that our shop has, or other shops, not everything is perfect, and not everything is always neatly and tucked in order, and we're always all learning, and that's the important part, as long as you're progressing as a shop. I see a lot of people, and kind of getting off topic, I know, but I see a lot of people on these Facebook groups. When I'm talking to someone, I see people getting bashed, but they're actively either trying to look for help, or they're actually actively trying to better themselves. And there's people out there still bashing them on Facebook. Like, how cool are you to bash someone on the internet, but people are actively trying to help themselves.
Right.
Unfortunately, ego speaks louder than words sometimes.
Yeah, you and I are in the same Facebook groups. I see the same thing. Kills me. So when we're talking about, I'm going to give you the golden question here that I get all the time. And it's not even a question. It's more of the frustration of, I'm not getting paid to do the repairs properly. So then it's the back and forth of, do I do it right and eat it, or do I do it half-ass and get paid the full amount? and talk about the angel and the devil, I know shops across the globe right now are dealing with this issue. So how are you guys dealing with it there?
Well, never half-ass. I will first and foremost say that. I definitely, so there's not, not to keep bringing up Kristen or Collision Hub or anything, but there a long time ago when me and her were friends, there was this challenge that she would issue to shops. $10,000 challenge for if they brought a car to pre-loss condition and they couldn't find anything wrong with it.
Right.
Well, everyone in the world knows it's crap because there's not a single shop, and unless you're the Bradshaws, that you're gonna find something wrong.
Right.
Like even with the Bradshaws, repairs and repair plan, there's always something either missed or to be missed in a repair plan. That's why this industry is so beautiful, because nothing is perfect.
Right. Yeah.
So
the coulda, shoulda.
To answer your question,
yeah.
Never half-ass, but always do something to the best of your ability. Never half-ass, no matter. Yeah. And that's not just in collision. That's anything in life.
Yeah.
Always do something that sucks. And unfortunately, in this industry, that's a lot of things. So we gotta do it. When it comes to the getting compensated for a part, that's a business decision to answer your other, the shops you're talking to answer their question. That's a business decision on your end. You got to figure that part out. What is this worth to you? And then you have to reassess what you're doing in the very beginning, because if you're not explaining your process up front, that is why that beginning conversation is so crucial.
Yeah.
If you're not explaining that part up front correctly, then you still didn't do your job efficiently. Are you CCing the customer on every email you send out to the carrier? Because even though we all talk about this big game about it, the customer, a lot of us are still trying to get everything covered and reimbursed by the carrier. There are shops out there that completely remove the carrier from the situation. They accept the initial claim, but they only go directly to the client, and that's their prerogative.
Right.
In my humble opinion, I believe that is a much harder route to go. And I do believe that your customer base will suffer. But if you make that your niche and you survive with it and you're successful with it, good on you. That's awesome, because that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's a labyrinth that we have to navigate, and that labyrinth is created by carriers. So we're out here doing our best that we can, and you have to make crucial decisions up front, and you have to include the client in every single one of them, every single email. Even if you're not explaining everything to T in them, you have to send them the documentation. You have to show them everything. This is why we're doing A, B, and C. And they just have to be included, because even if they don't understand, when they feel included and it looks, that statement, fake it till you make it, it's a legitimate thing. It's a legitimate thing. And even if you're not faking it, it might be gibberish to the customer, but if it looks like you're making it, then it's relevant, if that makes sense.
I'm going to interrupt this podcast for just one quick second, because a lot of people wonder, Mickey, what is it that you even do besides host a podcast? Well, I do marketing, and really the biggest thing that I do is help you drive more traffic to your business. And not even just more traffic, but consistent traffic to your business. As a former shop owner, I know how important that is. So if that's something you're interested in, or you just want to talk about marketing or developing your business in general, feel free to reach out. You can visit collisioncentermarketing.com. There's a calendar on there, and you can just book a time that works for you, and we'll set up a phone call. Or you can email or call me, and my notes are down in the description of this episode. But I hope to hear from you. I'd love to help you build your business. But in the meantime, you better get back to this podcast, because it's really good. What you're doing is you're showing that you are the expert. Even if they don't understand that that's what's happening, they will infer that after watching the communications and the dialogue go back and forth. And being CC'd in that allows them to see the behind the scenes versus, so I think you touched on a lot of really good points right here. So first of all, the word labyrinth, I love it. I'm going to use it more often in my everyday language. B, number two, the intake conversation, being super upfront, giving them all the data upfront, letting them know the process, huge, and then including them which so many shops still aren't doing, Kyle, is including them on the every email that goes to the carrier. So many shops are not including the customer in it. And in their mind, they don't want to burden the customer. Where in actuality, what we're finding, and clearly you found it at your shop, and I see other shops are finding, that actually it's not burdensome for the customer. Then they know they have an advocate. They know they're working with a specialist. You're supposed to be the expert in the industry, and you're showing that you are, and you're actually working to do what we would call, the right things for the right reasons, which at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? Like we're trying to do the right thing that we think is the right thing. And everybody can debate on what the right thing is. At the end of the day, you feel like you're doing the right thing, and they get to see you in action. You're not just saying it up front, but now they're watching it in action. How powerful is that?
What we do is a very noble thing. And it's funny you bring that up, and that you're to explain really how crucial it is to involve the client with everything. And I hope this comes across to all your listeners and viewers, that it's not so much the ins and outs. It's nice. It's awesome to have, well elaborate repair plan. It's really awesome. But being the expert and conveying yourself as the expert is the most important part.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to touch on this constantly in all my classes I do. You can write the kitchen sink if you want. And it doesn't matter how thorough you are. If you cannot explain that properly to the client and to the carrier, it doesn't matter what you write, because it doesn't credit it. It doesn't give it credibility. It doesn't matter what document you give.
Right.
If you don't come across as the expert in their eyes, it's not going to convey the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I like to talk about, and this actually happened recently, is a client was involved with a carrier, and it's a very small repair plan. But the carrier was $1,000 off of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that made zero sense. But I made sure every email I sent to the carrier, I addressed the client. I didn't address the carrier. I addressed the client. But it was clear that the carrier, I was sending it to them, and the client was just CC'd. And I always started the email with the client. And I sent this long explanated email, and I included the 4 photos that we've been going back and forth, and all the documentation involving the vehicle and how I arrived at what I arrived with. But most importantly, it was how I worded the email. And the customer called me, and she actually has an attorney involved with it right now. And the car's been here for almost 45 days now, and it's just a bumper replacement.
Oh my God.
She believes in what we're doing so much. She called me and she goes, "That was the most thought out and well put together email I've ever read in my life. I sent that off to my attorney so she can understand how to craft an email and do her job better." So it was pretty cool to have it was pretty cool to have a client, tell me that. And basically the only thing I said in the email was I highlighted the differences, what photos were being looked at, what was being left off, how I come to my repair plan, and what 4 questions I ask myself, the client, and the carrier when writing the repair plan. And that was it. The 4 questions I give Mike Anderson the utmost credit to. And the 4 questions that many, teachers will talk about is it required? Is it included? Is there a designated time for it? And if there's not, what is that worth to you? Those are the 4 questions. And they're easy questions. Some people have 5, but they're 4 basic questions.
Love that. Well, anything Mike Anderson comes up with is usually really good, right? And
absolutely.
And so you're saying you're emailing your customer and the carrier is CC'd on everything. Is that right? Or
essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It's not always that way, but in this one in particular, because of the way the client is, yes, it was definitely framed that way the entire time.
Interesting. So do you find that because at the end of the day, everybody wants to get paid, and that's where everybody's like, you're saying it's a business decision. So for you guys, are you finding that having the customer CC'd in the emails and having that transparency between all 3 parties, let's call it, is allowing for more for more compensation because the carrier knows that there's more eyeballs on this than just you and them?
Yes, it 100% makes it easier. It makes it more palatable to the client, and it makes it a little more understandable that they're going to be out of pocket X, Y, and Z if the carrier's denying for charges. Now, that doesn't mean every carrier is still going to understand it. I can go through. I've had that happen even recently. I've gone through my entire spiel in the very beginning, and they seemed very understanding, and but looks can be deceiving on my end as well. I got the old nod and smile, and they seemed like they understood everything. And then they looked as if they were going to be several $100 above and beyond their deductible out of pocket. And they were like, pump the brakes, and insert emoji here.
Yes, yes.
And they were like, they're like, we're not going to be out of pocket, my man. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. We talked about this, and I explained everything. I explained everything again, and I sat there and thought it over, and I was like, let me try one more thing. And again, labyrinth. And I reworded an email, sent it back to the client, or sent it back to the customer at the client CC'd, and then the carrier called me, and they're like, yeah, we can figure this out. And we ended up figuring it out, and they got within a small percentage. It was like they got within like 2% of my final bill. So I was like, see you later.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I find it interesting, and I appreciate it. There's so many camps. Everybody's like, no, that's not the way that we do it. We only do it like this. And everybody's got their little camps, the way that they feel. So they feel so strongly about it. And there is the camp of, if they owe $15, they're going to pay us $15, so there's like the camp. And then there's the camp that it sounds like you're a part of, that I know a lot of shops are part of, is if we can get it close, then there's a certain amount that we're willing to kind of write off in order to make it happen and still do the right thing and be a service for the customer. And again, I don't think anybody is wrong. It's a business. I love I love it. I say the same thing. It's a business decision. How do you want to choose to move forward with you? Because at the end of the day, it's your money. So you get to decide.
Exactly.
Yours meaning the shops. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. It doesn't, there's no right or wrong. The only wrong way to do it is not repairing the car correctly, not looking up repair procedures, choosing to do whatever you feel is necessary. That is the only wrong way to do it. Everything else, agreed. As long as you're looking up the repair procedures, you're documenting everything, and you're going about it and repairing it the correct way, that's what matters,
Yeah. Well, and we see a lot of shops now moving into this space. And when I bring it up with shops that I talk to, where they'll say, hey, the insurance company is $2,000 off. And I say, well, what do you tell your customer? Are you talking to your customer about this? Are you holding them accountable to pay the difference? And they're like, no, I would never. And it's like, okay, well, that's by the conversation that we had in the beginning. Well, you're either not really doing all of it, or you're choosing to eat all of that money. And in my opinion, I don't think it should be an option to not repair it the way that the manufacturer procedure says to repair it. Personally,
I have a hard time believing that there's shops out there eating $2,000 when it comes to repairing the car correctly. I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I have a hard time believing that, especially with that, especially when it comes to. I'm not inserting a major service organization's name anywhere, but I find it really hard with certain things of that nature, because it's, I mean, I could touch on so many different operations. A carrier can come in and say, oh, well, we're not reimbursing the client for you to pre-wash the vehicle. Well, why not? Well, our shops do it for free. Well, what do you mean your shops do it for free? What's that mean? Let's talk about this a little bit. What's that mean? What do you mean your shops are doing it? Are you talking about your contracted shops? I mean, we don't have a contract with you, Mr. Carrier. We're right. We're an independent shop. We don't have a sheet of things that we can and can't charge for. So that you can't. It's kind of an unfair bias to put upon the client that you're basing your status of indemnification on a sheet of things that your repair network shops are only not charging for. Yeah. And verifiably so. Are they even doing it? You can't tell me that, I've worked at an MSO. They're not pre-washing every single car that comes through. I can promise you that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
I
that's
know because
something,
as a technician, I didn't.
right. Yeah. Well, and I think that's something for all of shops to remember, because there's a lot of shops that listen to this podcast that are smaller shops and some even large shops that are operating very independently. And they're not like, this podcast allows them to hear different perspectives. I always recommend shops get into associations and groups, get involved with your peers in your industry, because there's so much to learn. There's so much, and we don't know what we don't know. And oftentimes shops are not adjusting or shifting the way they do things because it's uncomfortable and they don't quite know what to do. So rather than not know and move forward anyway, they're not moving. So they're doing the same
No,
things
yeah.
that they've always
They're
done.
scared.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. And I understand that.
Complacency.
I understand it's not a judgment. It's an encouragement to get involved with your local associations. Get on a collision cocktail hour call that we do once a month. Listen to, well, you're already listening to this podcast, but share it with other people. Listen to other podcasts in the industry. Like, we're at a place right now, especially with digital, where we can virtually connect with people. You don't even have to get out of your shop. Although going to the association meetings, I'm sure, is far better, because the best times are at the conferences. Like the conference, great, whatever. It's the cocktail hour. It's the thing at the end of the conference when you're sitting with the other shop owners and talking about legit, this is what goes on in my shop. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I learned. Like when I owned a shop, that was key. That's why I went to the conferences. Honestly,
The last presentation I just taught was in Cookeville, Tennessee, for the Tennessee Collision Repair Association. Shout out to them. Thanks for having me out.
Yeah.
And when I got in, someone was like, "Man, I can't wait till after the class." I'm like, "Well, why is that?" They're like, "That's when the best conversations are had." And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's when I'll divulge many different secrets.
Yeah. Right.
I imagine your listeners kind of want to hear an idea of what I would say to someone about that $2,000 question. Is that kind of what you were alluding to?
Let's go.
To hear?
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, so it's a bit. So would I be able to? Can I read that email omitting certain?
Yeah, please go for it.
Information.
100%.
All right. We'll start off. Client. Actual repair procedures are not judgment calls. For example, looking at photos 27 through 30, they are of the various damage points of your bumper. You also have various ADAS systems such as blind spot monitoring and the front camera, which controls multiple different ADAS systems that all communicate together. Toyota is very strict on repairs on plastic covers anymore. So not only is it not cost effective to repair the damage to your plastic cover because it contains so much memory, but there are also potential safety issues that can come across when repairing a bumper like this. So to better answer this question, you would need to request an exact line item description of everything that blank carrier is refusing to indemnify you. So when I write a repair plan, I use three main pieces of information. Above all is the manufacturer's requirements. Everything we do with the vehicle is the repair manual is referenced. We do not assume that we know anything when it comes to the repairs of that vehicle. It doesn't matter how many times we have repaired it. The next piece of information I use are the procedure pages, which is my estimating systems guide. It tells me what are included and not included for a specific group of things. For example, when replacing a bumper, what is included with that? What R&Is? What procedures do I need to do when I disconnect the battery for taking off the bumper? X. What is included with it? Everything still needs to be included or completed, which may not always be backed up by manufacturer documentation. I may have to look other sources. Finally, I discuss with my technician assigned to the repair of your vehicle on what specific standard operating procedures he is going to actually do to complete your vehicle. So all of that compiles my repair plan. And I always ask myself four things when writing the repair plan. Is it required? Is it included? Is there a designated time for it? And what is that worth? I hope that helps. Also attached is all the documentation regarding the repairs to your vehicle. I think you'll be surprised at what a simple bumper cover replacement takes. And yes, I read every bit of it when I look it up. Attached to it were approximately, there's 23 different attachments accumulating 60 pages of documentation for a bumper replacement involving a Toyota. if I really dove down a rabbit hole, I probably could have found many, many more. But
Right.
ultimately, to answer that question, it just really depends on the customer and how it's perceived. For the most part, I let them know that I tell them that insurance carrier is denying these charges and they need to request an exact line item description of what to find out exactly what we're out of pocket. But if the customer really asks me, I will sit down with my repair plan and their estimate. And I go line by line, and I get a pretty close figure of just doing math in my head and looking at everything, crossing it off, and kind of going about it. And then I tell them these are the procedures they're denying you reimbursement for. Do any of these not make sense to you? And I legitimately ask them that question. I've never had a client. I'm sorry, I changed my mind. I've had 2 clients come back and tell me, well, I think it's a bit ridiculous that you're charging. Okay, you think it's ridiculous? Erased. We're still doing it, but you get it at no charge. What else do you think is ridiculous? And I frame it the same way they say that.
Right.
They're like, honestly, I can't see anything here. I'm like, unfortunately, your carrier is refusing reimbursement of these charges. So you need to get with them and figure out why. I, as a repair facility, can only get so far with your carrier as, one, I didn't hit your car, so there's no negligence there if it's a third party. And 2, if it's a first party, I don't have a contract with them. They're not obligated to speak to me.
Right.
And 9 out of 10 times when I ask them for that kind of documentation, they're not really going to answer it. I've never had a carrier change my mind again. I've had one carrier come back with a complete line item list of everything they're denying. And they never did that again because I think it took them like 2-3 hours to respond to that email. Which honestly, at the end of the day, the client paid us out of pocket, but I just thought it was awesome that they even just responded to it. So I was like, that's a win just in that situation.
Yeah.
But that's really it right there. It's not an easy conversation. It's going to suck every single time, and you're not going to feel the greatest about it. But unfortunately, there's no easy way to do it. There's no secret sauce. There's no secret way of explaining it. Your way of explaining it's going to be different than mine. You just have to be honest.
Yeah.
And that is the key. And I hate to sound like a cliche second grade teacher, but honesty is the best policy.
I like it. You need it on the wall behind you with your plaques.
Well, it should say violence is the best and honesty is the best policy.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you being candid with this. I really wanted to talk about this today because I have a different perspective of the industry a little bit because I have calls and have conversations on the daily with shops that are really going through it. And my heart hurts for these people, men and women. And if I can help, or if we can help bring some information to the table that can help them, that's what this podcast is about, So I really appreciate you, Kyle, being transparent with what you guys do there, how you're doing things. It's been, I'm sure, a work in progress. It's been a learning process. So for anybody starting this, it's not going to be the prettiest right out of the gate. And that's okay. That's okay, right? We're constantly learning. I'm sure Kyle didn't just arrive at this. Like, this is something he's gotten to.
No, I will tell you so it's funny. It's a funny story, and I can touch it really fast. Is when I was finally brought in here, I came in as a tech, and I had 2 just massive jobs when I first started. But there was a need in the office, so I taught along obviously with people who were showing me things and teaching me along the way. I didn't teach myself everything, but I took it upon myself to learn how to run a shop. I took it upon myself to learn accounting. I took it upon myself to learn tort law, contract law. I took it upon myself to get my AIC 30. I took it upon myself and pushed myself. Obviously, I had the people who take me in the right direction, but I took my learning to the next level not because I wanted to know everything, because that'll never happen, but because I wanted to be able to teach everything I've learned. Because if those around me can't do what I do, then I didn't do my job effectively. I'm always learning as a leader. I mean, just the other day I had to spank myself because, accountability wasn't my middle name this past couple of months. I've kind of been a jerk to my guys. So I had to, someone had to tell me that. So I had to reel it in. We're not always perfect. And we have to come to the acknowledgement of ourselves. And that's the important part of this industry. And when I came into the office, I had no knowledge of anything, but we figured it out, and we lost in this push. When we started out hot and heavy, and we lost like 40% of our customer base, and we had to clamor and get it back. But that's what happens. When you start this, you have to start off slow. You can't just throw out, 200 line quarter panel estimates and 300 line quarter panel estimates. You can't do that. You have to start slow. But you have to know those things too. You have to know that all these things are operations being completed. Document them anyway. But you have to know your limits, and you have to put the ego aside. And that's what we as an industry have a big problem with, is the ego. The need that we have to save every customer. We're not. I hate to say it like this, but we're not Captain Save-A-Ho. We can't save everyone. We got to do this. No, we're not. I know this is Valentine's Day and all, but definitely not.
Yeah, I appreciate all of what you just said. I feel like if you're listening, you need to click that little back 15-second button a few times and go back like for the last minute and listen to everything Kyle just said, because it's so powerful of the process that it took, the learning. That's why being around others that you can learn from that have made the mistakes, you can learn from them, because you're going to make mistakes anyway, but you'll make less mistakes because you'll have other people helping you, guiding you. And there are people like Kyle out there. I'll put Kyle's information in the description. You guys can reach out to him. Try to get involved, get around people, learn, ask questions, because people in this industry that really have a heart to help, like Kyle, like myself, we want to help you. We want you to be better. We collectively want the industry to be better. So you're not alone. You may feel alone. You're not. 100% you're not. So let's
Can I say one last thing, Mickey?
Yeah. Go for it.
That is why associations are so important. When people ask about the return on investment about associate, well, what am I getting out of it? It's not going to be obvious right away, but it's going to be obvious when you go to that first meeting about something stupid that you don't want to pay attention to, or when you step into that ICAR class for that everyone doesn't want to be there for because it's talking about cycle time. It's being around your peers and just asking them, hey, have you ever came into this? That's why associations are so important, because you're going into a training seminar that you don't think you need to be there for, but that other guy thinks he needs to be there, and he may have a piece of information you need and you never knew him before. And that's why associations are important.
Yeah, love that. Yay. Love that. Clapping emoji. 100%. Raising hands emoji. All right. Yes, the dancing. So Kyle's information is in the description. Challenge to all of you guys to listen to this, have your team listen to this, go back and listen to it again. Use this to step out of yourself, step out of your comfort zone if you're not doing these things. And even if you are doing things and you're running up against some troubles, reach out. There's a ton of people out in the industry that are willing to help you, that want to help you. So I think we're going to wrap it up with that. We talked about a lot of good things today, Kyle. I knew you were going to bring the heat. I appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate you for having me on. Thank you. And I honestly, I could continue. I mean, I got hours and hours and hours and hours of content. I could talk forever on this stuff.
I know you can. I know. I was like, Kyle, we only have like 45 minutes, bro. Well, and I told Kyle before we even started, I said, listen, we got to be careful because we're both talkers. So we can't talk for the next 5 hours, because I know sit he and I in a room and we're done. Days will go by.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Love you. Thank you guys all for listening to today's episode of the Body Bangin' Podcast. Don't forget to share this, rate it if you loved it. We can share it with more people. Apple shows it with more people the more reviews we have. So please feel free to review it. Again, Kyle's information is in the description. And you all have a blessed day. Stay tuned for in the next 2 weeks because we'll have another awesome episode of the Body Banging Podcast. See you next time. Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.